I'm going to ask an open question to any trustee who wants to answer this, and this has to do with partnerships. A few years ago, the school board and the city partnered on a busing program for students that were taking home ec and shop that needed transportation that didn't have any. They got to ride city buses. It's a program that is very, very successful. Every year it's renewed automatically. So I would like to ask the following question. Would the school board, you as a trustee, look at more community partnerships, for example, opening up gymnasiums after hours and on weekends to community groups, to kids? There's a lot of talk right now about a youth center, youth activity groups. So would you be conducive as a board member to open up school facilities to the general public, in particular the youth? Kevin?
Yes, absolutely, John. We heard earlier about the need for, we spoke earlier about the need for cost cutting and how difficult it can be. One of the most obvious solutions that comes to me as a potential trustee is looking for those potential partnerships in the community where educational services or training are already delivered, where services are already delivered, and where we, as a school division, are redundant in providing the same service. If we can find a more efficient way of providing a service so that we can be able to retain other important programs, that's the way to go.
Thank you. When you say more efficient, would that also look at, and we've seen in the past where corporations have tried to buy sponsorships in schools, would you be open to something like that?
Certainly, I'm certainly open to it. However, before a school division can move to accept corporate donations, there has to be a very clear policy on the limitations of such sponsorships. We need to be able to control what kind of message, what kind of information is being sent to our students through the decision, and we have to pick and choose which partnerships might be complementary to our priorities as school division trustees.
Mr. Bartlett, I believe you wanted to answer about partnerships and opening schools to the community at large.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, we do have some successful partnerships, and probably one that immediately comes to mind is that of our drug coalition and the number of organizations from the city that work together to meet and to challenge our young people with regards to those particular problems are outstanding. We as a board have and are pursuing this year other partnerships that can benefit us in terms of what the other gentleman mentioned, having crossover which maximizes dollar
Thank
usage.
you. I'll ask Pat, and I guess I should also ask a sidebar question, and that is, opening the schools, of course, would have a cost. So we're talking about tax dollars. Is it cost effective opening the schools after hours to community groups? Pat?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank you for mentioning the busing situation, because I think that that was initiated in part by myself, given that my husband had been a bus driver and I knew the parameters of getting kids on the bus. Actually with working with the city. So it was a great partnership. In terms of opening the schools at night, I would definitely say that I could support that, and I would point to service clubs in the community that get money from the community and they could recycle it back in programs for students in our very own facilities.
Thank you, Pat. Marty, I believe you wanted to answer?
John, if I could, just for a second, Marty, beforehand, we've got indications of 3 other candidates after Marty. So Kogan Sarek, Crook, and Murray, and that would be the end of that question. Is that reasonable?
I'm a
Yes.
strong,
Oh, sorry.
Marty,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a strong supporter of partnerships, and 90% of my work at the Brandon Neighborhood Renewal Corporation is partnerships. And some examples, the Food for Thought breakfast program is a partnership program, not only with the school division, but with business. We go out and raise $60,000 a year. A big opportunity is child care centers in schools. I think that's a community partnership that we should be looking at. And youth at risk programs that we started with the Y have continued on long after I've been there, and I think we need to do more of that, and the costs are not as high.
Thank you, Marty. Sandra?
Thank you. The idea of partnerships in the schools isn't something new. For the past 8 years that I've been involved, I've heard over and over again talks about having preschools and daycares in all our schools, which I think would be an awesome idea, and as well as opening the gyms to the community and the public in the evenings. There's also the the health initiative in the high schools where they have the health clinics that come right into the high schools for the students, the YWCA after school program, and I would be open to hearing any others as well that might be feasible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I believe Glenn Crook?
Yes, I am totally a strong supporter of that. You look at school gymnasiums. Schools are spread out throughout the city. You know, I hate having something that's paid for with taxpayers' dollars sit empty. It can be used. It can be used a lot more than it is right now. Absolutely.
I believe Jim Murray had one last comment.
Yes, thank you. I'm also a strong supporter of partnerships. Through the Chamber of Commerce, we have many active sponsorships. Take Your Children Today, the portfolio, or Take Your Children to School Day, the portfolios, and that sort of thing. Corporate donations are covered under the Public Schools Act and board policy, but I mean, certainly we can always continue to expand that. And as far as the community use of our schools, that exists now through the City Recreational Department. Our schools are used most weekends and most evenings by community groups like club volleyball and those sorts of things. I know that there have been Scout and Cub Packs in our schools in the evenings, as well as a church group that met at River Heights School for a while. So
thank you, Jim.
Those are open.
All right, my next question that I have is for a number of candidates. Hamilton, Snelling, Barrett, Ross, Burry, and Linda Ross. Oh, I already got Linda Ross. And Sean Cameron. A growing percentage of the Brandon School Division's annual budget is now dedicated toward providing health-related services to special needs students and disabled students. And we've heard this lament over the past several years that trustees are now saying the province is saddling school divisions with a lot of healthcare related costs. Do you believe that it is the responsibility of the taxpayers who fund the Brandon School Division to bear these costs? If not, whose responsibility is it? I alluded to the fact that incumbent trustees feel it's the province's responsibility, but for all candidates that I've listed, I'd like you to address that concern. And Jim Murray will ask you to go first.
I didn't think I was on your list, but yes, I do believe that in some extent we are being asked to pay for things that are health related. And we also all agree that there's only one taxpayer, but I believe that more of that money should be coming out of general revenue and it should be built towards the healthcare service rather than the education. Our dollars should be educating children and healthcare dollars should be looking after healthcare, and I think that would give us more money to spend in a classroom.
Do you feel then, Jim, just following up, do you feel that it should be a trade-off if the province agreed to pay more of the healthcare costs that are going into the schools, then perhaps we could compromise a little on the funding formula that you speak of?
I'm not sure at this point in time I'm going to comment on if we want the healthcare to pay us for that or the province. I'm just saying that I want to use education dollars to educate children and I want healthcare costs covered by healthcare. How that gets divided up, I'd like the province to figure out.
All right, Vanessa Hamilton, if you could answer that question.
I really don't know how to answer this question. I mean, the special needs children are in the Brandon School Division, so I think it's the responsibility of the Brandon School Division to provide services or to provide services for them, and I don't believe it's the province's role to.
Sandra, if I might, at what point in time does it stop being an educational cost and it being a provision of a healthcare service? I think that gets to the crux of the matter. There is an education component, obviously, and the people here tonight have on numerous occasions indicated that they have a responsibility to provide education to all students. But at the same time, I think it's fair to ask that question, at what point does it stop being education and at what point does it begin being healthcare?
I was just wondering, like, what about children with mental health issues, being overweight, having high blood pressure, and they're students in the Brandon School Division, so is the province supposed to be paying for those children as well?
I think I would broaden the question for the remainder of the candidates then, health care related costs, whether it be AFM counselors, whether it be school, educational assistants taking special needs students to the washrooms and changing them, situations where health care has started to slide into our classrooms. And I'll ask Trustee Snelling to go next.
Thank you. I think part of the problem or the difficulty is special education funding and the classification of students into the different categories. One category gets so much per child, another category doesn't, and getting children classified into the proper category is one part of the problem. Healthcare costs, direct healthcare costs should be charged to healthcare. Our dollars got to go to education.
All right, thank you. Candidate Barrett?
Thank you. I think this responsibility has been deferred to the school division from the province, and it's our frontline obligation to look after these students and each and every student in the division. I'd like to see more of that funding come from the government, or more money come from the government to cover those costs, but first and foremost, if we've got it, we have to deal with it and take care of it, look after those students and their needs, and lobby for a change in the funding structure.
Thank you, and I'll let candidates Ross, Brewery, and Cameron answer, but first, B. Jolly would like to answer this question.
Well, we have 3 levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 2 and level 3 funding is provided by the government, but level 1 is only done by grants, and we have children, autistic children, put into level 1. So we need to have that changed so that these children can be fully funded, as can all the other children in levels 2 and 3.
All right, thank you, B. Linda Ross?
Certainly we have kids in our schools who have health needs, and the reasonable place to address them is in the school because they're there for a good part of their day. However, educational dollars should be used for education. If we have health care costs, they need to be covered by Department of Health provincially.
All right, thank you, Linda. George Brewery?
Yes, I agree. I think we do have a lot of healthcare costs, and they should be covered by healthcare agencies. Our AFM counseling has been going up year by year by year, and we've been covering it. We've been making this point to the ministry. We will keep making that point and keep trying to get some equalization of that funding.
I believe we have candidate Sean Cameron and Pat Boleslaw has indicated she'd like to respond.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Having been somebody that worked for close to a decade with exceptional children in the Brandon School Division, I do believe first and foremost education is a mandate of ours, and educating those children the same as everyone else is a mandate. Coming back to that though, healthcare-wise, I do believe that it should be something that the province should be stepping up to a greater level and continue to lobby the province on that to cover those healthcare needs within the school division.
Thank you, and Ms. Boleslaw?
I would totally agree with Sean. I think that some of us would have come through the era when many of these children were in institutions, and I am certainly not a proponent of them being in institutions, but when they came out of institutions and into the school system, the appropriate and associated funding did not come with them, and so it becomes the burden on the school division to make sure that the facilities, equipment, and materials and support and teaching is there for these children.
Thank you. I've got 3 questions that have come from the audience, but because we're getting some great questions from our panel, I'm going to ask one, and as you see, we're moving close towards 9 o'clock, and I will read as follows. A couple of the candidates mentioned increasing graduation rates. What about worrying about the quality of education so the certificate has a better meaning? And on this sheet indicated that they would like an answer from candidates Crook and Hamilton.
Sorry, could you read that question again, please?
Absolutely. A couple of the candidates mentioned increasing graduation rates. What about worrying about the quality of education so the certificate has a better meaning?
I think that comes right back down to accountability as to the effectiveness of the instruction that is received and the academic excellence of the kids once they graduate. That's absolutely essential.